afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Richard Massey with Civil Plus Structural Engineer, and I am talking with Jim Campbell today, and he is president of PND Engineers Incorporated out of Anchorage, Alaska. And this is an innovative firm. It's a long-standing firm with a great reputation, and they're celebrating their 40th year anniversary. So being in business that long is quite an accomplishment. So Jim, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good. Well, I've always wanted to go to Anchorage and I've never been there. So, and I think a lot of people haven't. So in a real quick thumbnail nutshell description, what's Anchorage all about?
Well, Anchorage is, of course, the largest city in Alaska. It really functions as the hub for the state. So even though it's a city of about 300,000 people, depending on where you draw the boundaries, it actually functions in a much larger way. It functions like the largest city of a state. All the major services are here. So great city. Lots of beautiful recreational outdoor stuff here.
Great, good. And it's good to be talking to someone up in Anchorage. So thanks a lot. So I was looking through the collateral for PND that your PR department sent over to me, and man, you guys have done a lot of neat stuff in some very difficult terrain and some difficult environmental conditions. And, you know, most firms just don't have to do that. And, you know, but P&D's been doing it successfully for 40 years, and you have some patented technology that you've developed over the years. And so what does it take to function in a harsh climate and environment like Alaska?
Well, it's a lot of fun. I just want to start off by saying that Alaska has less infrastructure than other states, and you know, it's a newer state and a lot of access. Anytime you want to do anything in the state, you got to get access to where you're going. So it's you get to work on the types of projects here that you don't always see in other states in the country, because you're actually having to do things like build roads and build new airstrips and build new docks if you want to put in a mine, or if you want to do a new oil field, or if, you know, anything like that. Whereas in a lot of other locations, you're redeveloping areas, or there are places that already have lots of access. So it's very different from that standpoint. And of course, we've got the Arctic element. We've got, 99% of the state is just virgin, completely untouched land. So it's all very pristine. And of course, we like to keep it that way. But as far as the challenges are, I think it's, to start with, it's the logistics of doing projects. And then the Arctic stuff, which gives it an added flavor, gives us a good competitive advantage over firms from California that are trying to get work up here because they don't know how to engineer for that. So.
Sure. And what is the work season up there? How many months does it last?
Well, for construction, you're right. It tends to be, it depends on what you're doing. It's either in the winter or it's in the summer. So what I mean by that is, of course, all the building construction, roads and paving, stuff like that in the cities, that has to happen in about 4 months in the summer. But in contrast to that, if you're doing, if there's a project that's a remote project, say they want to go look at a potential mine site, or there's an oil field development, a lot of that actually occurs in the winter when the ground is frozen and there's some snow cover. They can build ice roads or something like that, so that they have almost no footprint, no impact on the tundra, for instance, so that they can go in. And you can't do that in the summer. If you try to drive across in the summer, you'll leave damage that will be visible for decades.
Oh, okay. Well, so it sounds like you've been the president of the firm for 5 years, correct?
4 years, yeah.
4 years, yes. But you had been with the firm before that, correct? With
24 years.
Right.
Yeah,
so you've been out into some pretty remote, pristine areas throughout your career.
Absolutely, yeah. We operate all around the state. From the North Slope to the farthest solutions to southeastern Alaska to the central part of the state. And you're right. It's for the most part, your places that you only access by boat or by airplane, not on the road system.
So yeah, so the logistics of it that's part of it, is getting there, getting your equipment there, getting your materials to the spot is a job within a job.
Well, for construction projects, of course, we're based in Anchorage, and we have an office in Palmer, which is out in the valley from Anchorage here, and an office in Juneau, and a major office in Seattle, and also an office in Houston, Texas, that kind of ties into some of the oil field and also ports and harbors work we do. But it's, our people are all based in offices, but we spend a lot of time. This summer, we've probably had about a third of our engineers and technical staff have been out in the field on a number of projects, doing construction inspection or doing field inspections of things that are going to be upgraded or repaired, or ongoing construction projects. So you're right, we get out a lot for those things. Or when you got to go in and do a meeting, if you're going to meet with marine lines to look at their docks out in Dutch Harbor, fly out there and spend a few days with them and go through it all. So.
Sure, yeah, that's fascinating. So you got to have a nice pair of boots and you got to have a nice coat.
You got to have a little of everything. We had record heat this summer though, so we had 80 degrees in Anchorage all summer. So you got to have. I guess we'll have to add some flip-flops to our clothing up here too. we didn't used to need that.
Great, yeah, good. Well, so you've been president for 4 years. What's the big headline there? What has PND done since you've been at the helm? Obviously every new leader comes in and there's a certain few new things that they want to do. And what do you think you've been able to accomplish since you've been at the top?
I don't actually, to start off, I don't really think of it that way.
Okay.
The company had, but it's a transition. So this is a second or third generation company. The original founder, the N in the company, Dennis Nottingham, is PND, Roy Peratrovich, Dennis Nottingham, Brent Drage. Dennis was president for 30 years.
Right.
Of the company. And so that really set the tone for the company and established what kind of company we are. And so, when I came into it, there's actually been a couple other presidents between Dennis and me, but it was really about maintaining the vision that he set, which is, of course, is very client focused. We're a service company. What does the client need? And also for us, it's really trying to be pretty innovative, research and development and new ideas to engineering, which, civil engineering is an old practice, but there are a lot of new things. There are new materials, there are new equipment, there's new ways of doing things. And plus, Arctic engineering was relatively new when this company started. And even today, we're still doing a lot of research and development for how to build things in the Arctic.
Right.
So, yeah. So for me personally, it's been mostly a matter of ensuring that transition, because we've gone from a company of, when I started, we were about 30 people and this strong president, founder person, to now we're 110 employees, got multiple offices. So there's some growth that has to happen there. You do have to kind of adapt to the changing culture. For us, probably one of the biggest things is just in this age of artificial intelligence and information technology, engineering is changing too. The business is changing. We have to adapt to that.
Well, let me ask you a question. So your firm has gone through growth. Do you recruit a lot of your engineers from Alaska, or do you have people from all over that have always dreamed about living in a place like that and knock on your door asking for a job?
That's a really good question. I was actually born and raised in Alaska in Juneau, and I've lived in Fairbanks and Anchorage. and we will recruit good people from wherever we can find them. But I will say that it takes a unique person that really wants to live in Alaska. And there are a lot.
Now, so it takes a very special person to want to be there.
Right. So majority of our employees in Alaska are people that grew up there, grew up here these days. And likewise in our other office locations. But a lot of people do want to move up here. And so we get quite a few people, particularly from states like Montana or Idaho, that are still have a lot of cold winter climate, a lot of outdoors hunters and fishers, people that want to get out and take advantage of that kind of environment. And those people will stay. If we hire someone that grew up in Las Vegas, they'll come up here and they'll be excited for a couple of years, but the cold, long winters will get to them. And often they'll either they or their spouse will say, yeah, let's move back south again. So it's, I'm sure that's the same for everywhere. You want to have people, you got to have people that want to live where you're working. So, but we try to recruit a lot from the local universities, but also from all over the country.
Sure. Well, I thought it was pretty neat. You were just recently, your firm was recently recognized by Governor Mike Dunleavy, correct?
Yeah. It's just a great honor. We're one of the largest Alaskan corporations that does engineering up here. There are some really major engineering firms, and you're familiar with the engineering industry probably. So, companies like AECOM or Jacobs Engineering. They have thousands and thousands of employees, and they all have offices up here. But we're a local company.
Right.
Our corporate headquarters here in Anchorage. We're regional as well. We're, as I mentioned earlier, we have offices in Washington and Texas, and a Canadian subsidiary for work in Canada. But it's a big thing to be an Alaskan corporation because as with every place, there's always a desire to have local content in your projects, and just that local part makes a difference, because the people in our company and in Alaska we're invested in this state.
Right. So did you know that recognition was coming your way, or did it kind of surprise you, or?
I think that was just I was caught a little by surprised by it, but it's just to be honest, I suspect he probably does that for lots of companies. If, periodically we're pretty active in the business community here, and it probably came as, he probably heard about it from the business magazine or something locally. I'm not sure how that came about.
Right. But that is unique that you are a local company. Everyone's going to have an office there because they all want a piece of the pie and to do the work, but you guys are from there. And, I'm reading up Peratrovich, is that how you pronounce?
Peratrovich, yep.
Peratrovich, and
it's a Russian name, but he's an Alaska Native Indian.
Yeah, and I kind of put all that together when I was going through the collateral, and Dennis Nottingham. They seem like some pretty neat fellows.
Yeah, they were really characters, and it was they were the right people in the right place and also in the right time, because they came up early in statehood, and there was it was a pioneer state. It's
Sure.
less than that now. It's still a little bit that way though. And they came up here, Dennis came up here, Roy grew up in southeastern Alaska, but Dennis came up here from Montana, and he became a bridge engineer at the Alaska DOT, and they needed bridges everywhere. You're building bridges left and right. So just what he loves. And Roy, of course, is a Alaska native from southeastern Alaska. His mother was a famous native rights activist. And but yeah, Peratrovich is how we pronounce it, and it's funny. It's a Russian name because there's a history of Russians in southeastern Alaska and Alaska in general.
Sure.
So that's
Okay.
what.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's neat to have guys like that in your company's DNA.
It really is, because they really they're engineers first, not they didn't go to business school. They went to engineering school, and it really shapes the character and the vision for our company. Um, we're all about that, and it's um, my wife. She's a humanities major, music and literature, and her eyes kind of glaze over when I start talking about engineering. But if you get around a bunch of engineers, we're little nerds and we love it, and so that's first and foremost for us. We're not trying to impress any investors or worried about the value of our share price. We're worried about the next engineering project. And that
Right.
came from
And that's a great segue too. So 40 years down, 40 years to go, we hope, correct? And what do you see on the horizon for PND, in Alaska, but it's a changing world, as you were talking about the technology that's already here, but that's going to become bigger over time, and renewables and fossil fuels and everything that's coming up. Where do you see PND fitting into all of that?
Well, in the biggest picture, I would just say engineering is there's going to be a lot of need for it in simple ways, in infrastructure itself. The basics. As there's lots of coverage nationally about the state of infrastructure in the United States, and that's really true. There's a lot of work to be done just to maintain and upgrade existing stuff. We do quite a bit of that, but really our bread and butter is our kind of at the leading edge. We like to develop new things. So things like mining projects in Alaska. A big thing is cruise port development.
Oh yeah.
Lots of cruise. There's lots of growth going on in the cruise industry, and we've been involved. We've been almost every cruise port in southeastern Alaska as a PND design, and there's the ships are essentially going to be doubling in size, and that means twice as many passengers coming to these communities. So there's a lot. There's always going to be some sector that's growing, and it's really exciting to be involved in. For us as a company, we just got to stick to our core and keep doing good engineering, and that does change some. So how and how we go about it and what that means, but we're in a good place to be here in Alaska because of the amount of infrastructure that's needed to do things and the opportunities. Yeah.
So there's still a lot to be done in Alaska.
Oh, you bet. Like I said, I personally, I think a big one right now is, like I just mentioned, cruise. I think there's a lot to be done in cruise. There's been talk for years about a gas pipeline for natural gas in the North Slope. It may not happen in this decade, but it will happen sometime in the future of this company. Because the gas is there and it will be used. It's a huge resource. And I think mining, I think that there's some interesting things happening. I suspect there'll be a rare earth metals mining will be increased in the United States because of just the geopolitics of that. And we want to have some of our own sources for some of those rare earths, for instance. So there's lots of things, and we're constantly looking at where those are because we want to be involved in those kind of projects.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, good. Well, I think we've covered some interesting ground in a very short amount of time. But is there anything else that you'd like to say about your 40th anniversary or anything else, Jim?
Well, I didn't prepare any talking points, but I would just say that it's really it's a substantial milestone. There are a lot of companies that are founded. They go through the first generation of owners, and then they close the doors.
Yeah.
Because they go away. And it's we passed that hurdle. We're 10 years past that, and it's a really big step. It says that this company is here to stay. We're bigger and stronger than we've ever been. It's been a really good year for us, and I think that the future is looks really bright for us as well. There's tons of civil engineering projects out there that need to be done, and we're looking forward to working on them. So.
Great. Well, Jim, it's been a pleasure talking with you today, and I really appreciate your time. And good luck on the next 40 years.
All right. We'll talk to you in 40 years.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.